How's everybody tonight? I'm going to unmute everyone so that if you do have questions, you can unmute yourself and ask questions. There's also a spot where you can type in questions for this retirement class, so feel free to do that. I have a little bit of a hard sight, so I might not see the questions. So if you can unmute yourself when you want to ask questions, more than welcome to do that. My name is Darcy Bergen. There's my number, and Darcy at Bergen Financial Group. That's who I am. I've been in the financial planning industry for just around 30 years, 10 of those years in Canada and 20 years here in the United States. So pretty excited to be an American citizen for quite a while now and make my home here. So my name is Darcy. As I said, I'm going to get right into a lot of good ideas for you tonight. Our class that we usually do at a college, in a college setting for people that are looking to retire, usually goes about 4 hours. On a meeting like this virtually, we're going to be done probably in about an hour, maybe an hour and 10 minutes, depending on questions. So we're going to go through a lot of ideas quickly, a fire hose of information. Hopefully you have a pen and a pad of paper and you can take notes. And again, if you want to ask your questions in between sections or at the end, that's fine. But I believe I've unmuted everybody. At least you can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask questions if you would like. So feel free to do that. So we're going to cover a lot of things. We're going to cover Social Security, when to take it. We're going to cover tax planning, how to pay less tax in retirement. We're going to cover investments. We're going to cover risk investments, safe investments, how to put a plan together. So we have a lot of information over this period of time. We're going to have a PowerPoint presentation. Also, we're going to use the whiteboard. So right now, I think you can only see me talking and the whiteboard. So a couple things I want to make sure you write down on your pad of paper. I want you to write down on one sheet of paper, risk plan. I want to write down another sheet of paper, tax plan. And I want to write down another sheet of paper, income plan. If you can get 3 things out of tonight, you've made well use of your 1 hour time. Most people spend more time planning their vacation than they do their retirement. So congratulations to you for coming on and taking this class tonight. So I want a risk plan, a tax plan, and an income plan. In my income plan, we're going to talk about planning Social Security. You know, I've been in this business 30 years. I'm 52 years old, and what I liked about this class is when we all look back at our life, we can always say, you know, here's where I started, here's where I'm probably going to finish, and maybe I'm right there. And we look back and we say, you know what, I've made a few mistakes. I've made some financial mistakes. I've made personal mistakes. I've made business mistakes. And I don't want to look back when I get to 65 and say, or 80 and say, man, I sure made a lot of financial mistakes in retirement. I want to have a successful retirement. And if I make certain plans, I'm going to have a successful retirement. I don't have to look back at age 85 and say, you know what, I made a lot of mistakes in retirement. We're not going to make those mistakes, because financial planning, a lot of people think it's uncertain. We can put a lot of certainty into financial planning. We know exactly what the stock market's going to do. It's going to go up and down. So we can plan for the up years and we can plan for the down years. We know about Social Security. We can plan for that. We know what the tax bill is. We can plan for that. So congratulations on taking this course. You're going to get to age 85 and 90 and look back and say, you know what, we had a successful retirement because we made the right decisions. And so let's get right into some ideas. So hopefully you can see now 2 screens. You can see me talking and you can see the PowerPoint. Again, I'm going to just double check that if you have questions, you can ask them. So there we go. We're unmuted. Okay, so if you do want to unmute yourself and ask questions, you can do that. All right, retirement. What does it look like? Everyone needs to have a retirement plan, financial plan, but they also need to say, you know, what do I want to do in retirement? And that's kind of about, you know, travel, golf, spend time with family. And we get the big question a lot. The big question is, do I have enough money to retire? And that's actually not the question we should ask. The question we should ask is, do I have enough money what is my monthly income? And do I have the resources to create that income? What is my income needs? What's my budget going to be? Okay, so what is retirement? Is it going to be traveling? Is it going to be spending time with family? Is it going to be playing pickleball or golf? Please know what you want to do when you retire. Don't just retire and sit at home and watch TV. That's not a successful retirement. And have a plan B. What's my plan B if my company lays me off, or if my company downsizes, or I get a good offer on my business and I'm going to sell out early? What's my retirement going to look like in plan B? And so we want to focus when we're planning on our income plan, on what is our monthly income needs, and then can we produce enough income from our resources to make that happen. For example, if I have $1 million in the bank at 1%, I'm only making $10,000 a year. But if I have $500,000 in an income guarantee plan that's giving me 5% payout per year, that's $25,000. That's a lot more than $10,000. And so then when we're looking at retirement in the next 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 years, we should change our mindset from accumulation stage, accumulating assets, to preservation of assets, asset conservation. I don't want to lose what I've got. The very worst time for the stock market to go down and for me to lose half of my assets is the year before I retire. That's the worst time to have volatility. So I want to make sure that my portfolio is structured in such a way that if the market goes down, I'm not going to get hurt by it. And then the next thing we've talked about is minimize taxation. We've got to make sure we know how do we get money out of our IRAs in a tax efficient way. When do we do Roth conversions? When do we turn on Social Security? And how do we reduce taxes all the way throughout? And of course, protecting against the downside risk. You know, we've got these sources of income. So our income plan could be a pension, Social Security, IRAs, 401ks, annuities. But if we retire at 65 and we take Social Security and we turn on our pension, we take money out of an IRA, it's a very bad income plan because we're going to pay more taxes than we should. And by the way, if I take $1 out of Social Security and I get $1 from my IRA, which dollar is going to buy more stuff? Guess what? The dollar from Social Security will buy more stuff because it's never 100% taxable. But an IRA, when I get it from IRA and put it in my bank account, it's 100% taxable. So maybe I might delay Social Security a little bit because not only is it better tax-wise, but it grows by 8% guaranteed per year every year I delay. My 401k and my IRA, guess what? They're not guaranteed to grow at 8%. So maybe I'm going to bridge the gap of income by taking more money out of my IRA and 401k and let Social Security grow and have a bigger Social Security check later and have less tax. More income, less income tax. That's an income plan and a tax plan combined. So where are we going to take our income from? You know, pensions are guaranteed income for life, taxable. Social Security, guaranteed income for life, not fully taxable. IRAs and 401ks are pre-tax. They're tax postponement plans. They're fully taxable when we touch them. And you know what? If you have got a 401k at work and you're still working for a few more years, you might decide to roll your 401k out to an IRA. Why would you do that? Because you have a whole lot more investment choices in IRAs than you do simply at work in your 401k. So something to think about. We'll talk about it a little bit later tonight. And so when we start looking at our planning, let's talk about our risk planning first. Our risk planning says, you know, let's not take a whole lot of stock market risk on everything. We want to make sure that we know how much are we going to put in green, that's principal protected money, and how much are we going to put in red, that's stock market money. You should probably not have bonds at all. We'll talk about that later. We'll talk about principal protected accounts that lock in and become principal every year with no risk at all. And then how much should we have in that kind of money and how much should we have in red money? The next question I want to ask when we're doing our risk plan is how much loss can I take in the stock market before I become uncomfortable? Me personally, In my 30s, I lost 6 figures in limited partnerships, real estate limited partnerships. I threw up every day for about 2 years, and I don't like a whole lot of risk. So my number is about 15%. If my accounts go down about 15%, I am uncomfortable with that. So I make sure my portfolio is structured in a way that historically it's never gone down 15%. Okay, so I want to make sure our risk plan is right. And of course, you might have annuities. Annuities are just a word for money at a life insurance company. Doesn't mean it's a good investment, doesn't mean it's a bad investment, it just means it's from a life insurance company. Annuities typically have 2 phases: growth phase, compound interest phase, and take money out phase, spend phase. We'll get into annuities a little bit later, but I will tell you that I don't like very many index annuities, but I love a few, about a handful, really good ones with no fees, principal protection, really good growth. So we'll talk about those a little bit later, where they fit into a portfolio. So where do we get our cash flow from to provide our monthly income in retirement are all from these areas, but we should have a plan of where am I going to take the money first? Where's my income going to come out of, and where's it going to come from, and how am I going to pay less tax doing it and create more income guaranteed? So that's your income plan. At the end of class, near the end of class, we're going to talk about Social Security, and at the very end, we're going to talk about tax planning and how to do it on a tax efficient way. So we've got retirement risks. We've got, we're in a recession right now. That could have gone into a full-blown depression. It didn't. It came back out, and that's the good news. But you know what? It brought us all back to reality that says, something can happen to cause the stock market to go down, and we could lose 20, 30, 40, 50% like we did in 08 and like we did in 2000. It can happen again, so I've got to be diligent, make sure that I know how it's going to affect me the next time it goes down. We could have political turmoil could come in the United States. Of course, we haven't had that for a long time, right? But it could be back in November. We don't know what's going to happen. That could cause the market to go up or down. We don't know. Change of interest rates. This is very interesting. When interest rates go up and down, that affects our investments. For example, when interest rates went down from 1983 to 2008-ish, guess where bonds went? Bonds went straight up. Because if I buy a bond at 7%, and interest rates go down to 6%, everybody wants my 7% bond. But guess where interest rates are today? They're at very, very low rates. So what can happen? Interest rates can't go down much more, but they could go up. And if interest rates go up, you'll see bonds go down in value in a big way. A 10-year bond will go down 8% if interest rates would go up 1%. So let me get this straight. If I have a bond that's earning 2%, very low interest rate, but interest rates go to 3%, my bond loses 8% value. It's not worth the reward. The reward is not worth the risk. A 30-year bond goes down almost 19% if interest rates go up 1%. Again, if I have a 2% bond for 10 years and interest rates go to 4%, no one's going to want to buy my 2% bond. They can get their own bond at 4%. That's why there is risk in bonds, and so maybe that's not the place to have my principal protected or my safe money. And then the next risk we're going to talk about is sequence of return risks. Sequence of return risk means if I retire and take money out of my investment. Here's an example from 2000, where people that retired in 2000 really got hurt by sequence of return risk. Started with $1 million, took out 5% per year, $50,000, and if they were 100% invested in the stock market, in 2018, they only had $94,000 left. Because the stock market went down for 3 years in a row and they were selling at a loss. If they had a guaranteed account, the green account we over here, where you never lost money in down years, but you made half the market in up years, those kind of index accounts that are insured, they still have $889,000. So that's an example of that sequence from 2000 to 2018. However, we don't know the sequence in the future. So let's jumble up the years. Let's change the sequence. And let's put 2004 first. And let's, so you can see the years at the bottom. They're all changed the sequence. Well, the red money, the stock market now, that sequence was a pretty good one. We're at 700,000 after that time period. But that guaranteed account in green is at 1.2 million. And then here's another one. The sequences were just randomly selected. Now that person that had all the money in the stock market is got half the money left. So that's the sequence of return. And the next thing we have to make sure we plan for is longevity. We're living a lot longer. If you're married today and you're both 65 years old, you have a 49% chance that one of you makes it to 90. So you got to make sure your money lasts a long time, because we have longer longevity. We're living a lot longer. And of course, there's a big chance that we spend time in nursing home, and we've got to make sure we plan for that. So today, with low interest rates, we still have to beat inflation. So our risk money, our stock market money, is designed to beat inflation over time. But our safe money, our principal protected money, our money that we don't want to risk, still has to beat inflation, because inflation is real. So you have to beat inflation on the green money and the red money. I call it green because it's guaranteed, principal protected. Red money because it's risk money. And so we've got to make sure that we beat inflation. And just a tip for you, please do something about identity theft. It's a big deal. 1 in 5 people in 2018 lost money from identity theft. And so now we're going to pivot over to estate planning really quickly, talk about wills and trusts a little bit. And so let's go to some wills and trusts. Everyone on the class tonight should have a will drawn up. Everyone should have a will. However, there's 2 kinds of wills. One is a public will, and one is a private will. The problem with a public will is your beneficiaries, your children, will have to prove it publicly. They'll have to go to probate court and prove the will. And that's going to take a lot of time and money. Arizona is backed up about 18 months. So if you don't like your children, put them through probate court, right? If you like your children, change your will to a private will, which is found inside of a revocable living trust. The average cost of a revocable living trust is about $3,500. Our firm and anyone that attends this class, we recommend that they go and they use a lawyer that we know, an estate planning lawyer, law firm called NASA Law, and they give our clients and people that attend this class a $1,000 discount, actually more than that, about $2,200. And for that $2,200, not only do they get a trust, but they get living wills, medical powers of attorney, durable powers of attorney, mental health care powers of attorney. They help them retitle their real estate and their assets to put it inside the trust, and they've just eliminated probate for the beneficiaries, and we have all those other documents that are very important to use. Now, that doesn't mean you put everything in the trust. A lot of times we meet with people that came from a class like this, and they did a trust and they put all their assets in the trust. That's not always the way it should be. If you have assets, any money that grows tax deferred, right? Any money that grows tax deferred, like an IRA, 401k, tax deferred annuity, shouldn't go through the trust. Because if I pass away and my IRA goes to my wife and I, Heather, our trust, guess what? She's going to lose 35% to the federal government and another 5% to the state government. And if we were wealthy, we'd lose another 40% in estate tax. We're not wealthy, we don't have to worry about that. But my wife doesn't want to lose 40% in tax, so we're going to have the IRAs go directly to named beneficiaries. And in this case, a spousal rollover. My wife can do a spousal rollover and not pay any tax on that IRA. And then after the spouse, we're going to go down, and the contingent beneficiary is going to be our children, and they can do a stretch over a 10-year time period and pay the tax over 10 years instead of paying all the tax at once. So generally, we'll tell our clients, make sure that your other assets go to the trust, but IRAs, 401ks should go to people because they can do tax planning with that and postpone the tax and do rollovers and that kind of thing as they need to do. So hopefully that makes sense on the trust. Now, we just kind of talked about beneficiaries. You can eliminate probate without a trust, but I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what I don't know with regards to that. So generally, we're going to use a lawyer and a trust. But I do know that you can put a beneficiary deed on a house, eliminate probate that way. You can put a beneficiary on a car at the DMV. You can eliminate probate on that. You can put payable on death on brokerage accounts. You can put transfer on death on accounts. You can put beneficiaries on IRAs, life insurance, Roth. So there are other ways to eliminate probate, but you might want to use a combination of the two. Okay, so let's go into some investment ideas. We're going to talk about diversification, asset allocation, myths, and basically stocks are ownership in companies. And you're going to benefit from the growth of those companies, but you're also going to take risk that those companies' values go up and down. Bonds, you're lending your money to maybe the corporate bonds or treasury bonds or municipal bonds, and your risk is that the lender pays you back. Your risk is also that if you need to sell the bond and interest rates have gone up, you're going to lose money on the bond. Now remember, an individual bond you can hold to maturity and get your money back in interest, but a bond fund has no maturity date. So if interest rates go up on a bond fund, you just simply lose money. There's no option. But in an individual bond, you do have the option to hold it until it matures and then not lose any money. So keep in mind that. And of course, historical asset allocation has been stocks and bonds, 60-40 maybe, and lots of diversification. Now, we've all heard the term, don't put all your eggs in one basket, but diversification doesn't protect you against systemic risk or the system. It protects you if you have all your money in Enron and Enron goes out of business, you lose your money. That's the way diversification does work and does protect against. But if the stock market decides to go down 50% like it did in 2000 and again in 2008 and 35% in 2020, diversification doesn't help, it goes down. So we've got to have a way to protect against the systemic risk of the stock market. So that means we don't put all our money in the stock market or bond market. We have some money protected, and we'll get into what to do a little bit later on that. But historically speaking, it's been stocks and bonds. The more aggressive an investor, the more stocks. The more conservative, cash or bonds. And so when you look at your risk plan, we talked about green and red money. We talked about what kind of drawdown you can take. I told you my drawdown risk could be 15%. I don't want to ever see my portfolio go down below 15%. That's my drawdown number. So drawdown is a measurement from the top of the market to where it went down and then came back up. There's a great new service that we use in our firm called Asset Lock. Asset Lock goes on our client's cell phone, and they get notified when their portfolio hits a record high by text, but they also have their drawdown number in their app. So if their drawdown number was 10%, if their $100,000 they started with goes down to 90,000, they get notified by text, and it says contact their advisor, and the advisor and the client are in communication about what to do. And every time the market or their portfolio hits a new record high, their asset lock number goes up as well, and automatically does that. So it's a great way for people to kind of keep track of their investments, but also be in communication when they need to be with their advisor. You know, sometimes people think that their financial advisors look at their account and look at their investments and on a regular basis, and that could be farther from the truth. Investment advisors have thousands of clients. There's no way they can look at every client's account every day and make recommendations, but we can have a system, technology can do that and tell us exactly when we need to communicate. We're communicating on the highs, which is not just a simple text, but on when there's downside, we're in communication, and we're forced to do that through technology. So very good thing, and that helps us guard against bad investor behavior. People say, what plan works? Is this financial plan going to work? Financial plan works if we stick with it. So the key is to stick with it and have the right information at the right time to be able to stick to it and not make bad investor behavior decisions. And so drawdown. S&P 500 is the largest 500 stocks in the United States. It's had 50% drawdown twice, and it had just recently 35% drawdown in 2020 with COVID. Bonds go up and down. We got bull markets going up, persistent small gains. We got bear markets going big ups and big downs. So we want to make sure we're ready and set for when that happens. One strategy, investment strategy, is a buy and hold strategy. On our stock market money, we buy and we hold, and we sell or change that when we have life-changing things happen, like getting closer to retirement or whatever, and then we reduce our exposure maybe, but we're not going in and out of the market. And then when we have our safe money on one side, that allows us to have a little more risk on the buy and hold side. So when these 40 and 50% drawdowns happen, we want to make sure that not all of our money is in that market. Like, don't have all our money in Fidelity Contra Fund. Lose half our money. If we lose 50%, we've got to make 100% just to break even. And then we've got American funds. Now here's a 3-star fund. Who's buying 3-star funds? Well, there's $140 billion in that fund, but yet it's only a 3-star fund. So the other thing I would say is when you're looking for financial advisors to work with a fiduciary, a Series 65 advisor that's a fiduciary, and they have an obligation to do what's in your best interest, not just sell a mutual fund that's a 3-star fund. Vanguard, again, same thing. So again, if we lose 35% in the market, we've got to make over 45% just to break even. So again, work with a financial dream team, financial advisor, social security expert, accountant, long-term care specialist, maybe a lawyer. And what is a fiduciary? Fiduciary is someone that has to put your best interest first. One of the easiest way you can tell if you're dealing with a fiduciary is if your advisor can charge you a commission on a mutual fund. If they can charge you a commission on a mutual fund, they're not a fiduciary. A fiduciary cannot charge a commission on the sale of an investment product or a security. They can charge a fee, but they can't charge a commission. All right, let's go back into investments a little bit. We've got stocks and bonds and mutual funds. We've talked a little bit about stocks and bonds already. Mutual funds is where the investors pool their money and hire a money manager to buy securities. And the profits and losses of those securities are passed on to the investor. In our firm, we use money managers that buy ETFs. They're very cheap to buy. Our fees drop to the floor, and the ETFs are broad diversification of the market in different sectors. Our money managers have been able to outperform the benchmarks net of fees. So we're very proud of that money management on the what I call the risk side. We're going to talk about annuities now, because annuities are a great way to have safe money but have really good rates of return, even though the principal is protected. So there's 5 basic types of annuities. I want to just go through them fairly quickly, but the last 2, immediate annuities and deferred annuities, are simply pension plans. You give money to an insurance company, they give you a pension plan for life. We're not going to talk about those. They're not popular. We don't use them. Interest rates are too low to make those feasible. So we're going to talk about fixed, variable, and fixed index annuities. So we're going to use the whiteboard to do that. So bear with me for a second. I'll make it easy for your eyes. Let's go to our whiteboard here. So we've got fixed annuities. Fixed annuities simply pay a fixed interest rate. Right now, you can get fixed annuities that simply pay 3.5% guaranteed interest. It's a lot better than buying a bond at 2% or a bond even at 3%, because if you hold that fixed annuity for its term, its 3-year term or 5-year term or 7-year term, whatever the term is, you're guaranteed that interest and you know exactly what you're going to get. It's fixed. Do I use a lot of fixed annuities? Not a lot, because the interest rates are still pretty low. A lot better than CDs, a lot better than bonds, but not quite enough for our clients. They like to make a little bit extra than that. And so let's look at the variable annuity. A variable annuity is simply a mutual fund or a number of mutual funds inside of a variable annuity wrapper. And so why would somebody buy mutual funds inside of an annuity? Because guess what? If you put those inside of an annuity, not only do you have the risk of the market, but you now have a whole lot of fees. The average fees on a variable annuity are 3.5%. It's pretty high fees, and you still have risk of the market. So I'm not a big fan of variable annuities. I know Susie Orman says don't buy variable annuities. So I would agree with her because I don't like the fees and I don't like the risk. But one of the annuities I do like is the fixed index annuity. Fixed index annuity. Fixed index annuities have replaced the bonds in portfolios because they give us a fixed value, and the value looks like that. So if the stock market goes down, I get a 0 return. My principal is guaranteed, it's protected. But then when the stock market or whatever index I'm buying goes up the next year, I get a percentage of that up, and it's paid to my account and it locks in. And then if the market goes down again, I get a 0 on top of that. It's now principal. And then if the next year the market goes up, I get my percentage locked into my account. So in good stock market years, I make good interest. In bad stock market years, I don't lose any of my previously credited interest or my principal. So that qualifies now for my safe money, my green money. And I can still make a decent rate of return because I'm linked to indexes. I can link to the S&P 500, the Dow Jones. I can link to some Fidelity institutional investments. I can link to some S&P and Dow derivatives, and I can get a decent rate of return. Last year in 2019, if I was bought an index annuity January to December, the S&P 500 was up double digits. Index annuities credited between 9 and 19% on the safe money side. And this year, with the market being down, none of those credited interest, none of those index annuities have lost any money at all. So they are very good for our safe money. So let's go now to asset allocation. We talked about stocks and bonds a little bit. Let's now talk about how to create a perfect risk plan, a perfect asset allocation plan without using bonds, and why not to use bonds. So if I had half my money in stocks and half my money in bonds in 2000, remember the stock market went down 50% in 2000, 2001, and 2002. But guess what? Interest rates were going down, so bonds were going up. So this old model of stocks and bonds asset allocation worked. But in 2008, the stock market went down 50%, but interest rates went up, so bonds went down 25%. So we lost money on both sides. It didn't work anymore. But let's go to a good year. Let's go to 2013. Remember, Stock market was down in 08, but it went up in 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, got back to even. Took 5 years to get back to even, and 2013 was a great year. 2013 was up 29.6%. So we made 30% on the stock side. But if we had bonds, guess what interest rates did? They went up again. So if bonds went down, every bond index was down from -2 to -12. I'm going to use -2 because you guys went to class and you guys bought the best bonds and only lost 2% on that side. So in 2013, if you've got half and half, how much did you make? Well, how do you work out an average? 30 minus 2 is 28. 28 divided by 2 is 14. When I was with Edward Jones or Raymond James or Charles Schwab and I had to pay fees on my mutual funds and I had wrap fees and transaction fees and I'm down to 12% return. So I call my broker up and say, broker, I lost 50% in 08, but in 13 I only made 12%. I'm not back to even yet. Why? Well, because I didn't want to put you all in stocks because you might lose half, so I had to pick bonds. So you can see it doesn't really work. So how do we make this better? 2013, if you have the same risk, half money stocks, half money safer, well, you're going to have the stocks and you're going to make 30% in good years, kind of like last year. But what should be over here? We can't put bonds there because of the risk of interest rate risk. But guess what we can do? We can put something we just learned about, fixed index annuities. Indexes that are insured against the downside. They look like this. Now, my personal index annuity in 2013 did 12%. Like I said, lots of our clients and their indexes last year made 12% plus more. So 30 plus 12 is 42. 42 divided by 2 pots of money is 21. Now we got to minus the fees. Guess what? You can buy really good index annuities at no fees. Let's just pretend your fee was 2% over here. The average fee is 1. You're left with 20% rate of return instead of 12% because you have a better portfolio, a newer portfolio, not just stocks and bonds. So which portfolio is safer? This one. Which portfolio has lower fees? This one. Which portfolio makes more money when the stock market goes up? This one. Why doesn't everyone do this? Because most people are dealing with a broker. Most people are dealing with companies that sell securities, sell stocks and bonds. They don't sell the safe side, they sell the risk side. So Edward Jones, Raymond James, Morgan Stanley, Charles Schwab, Wells Fargo Advisors, these companies, publicly traded companies that sell securities, don't necessarily do the safe side. They can't put a wrap fee around this. They can only put a wrap fee around securities. Okay, and you got to, by the way, you got to deal with a fiduciary that has double licensed on both sides, not just on the security side, but also on the life insurance side to insure the indexes. Okay, so just kind of the new model of asset allocation. So important to understand that we've got to make changes when things have changed, not just the same old, same old. People say, should I buy life insurance? You know, life insurance is one of those things that we buy, not necessarily that we need it, because when we die, we're not here. But people buy life insurance for a couple of reasons, especially in retirement. A lot of times they found out that you can put a lot of cash value in life insurance and you can earn tax deferred interest. Instead of earning interest in the bank that's taxable, they can earn interest inside of an index universal life insurance policy, kind of like the index annuity. It locks in as you go, but no 1099s while it's growing. And if you pass away, all that money goes tax-free to your beneficiaries. And if you need long-term care or home health care, you can take an advance of the death benefit before you die to pay for your care. So you don't necessarily need to buy expensive long-term care insurance. We could do a whole hour on this plan of power of zero taxes and tax-free planning with index universal life. And virtually, it's just hard to do. So if you'd like more information on that, take advantage of our free strategy session at the end of class. We do offer a strategy session to anyone that comes to the class to kind of get more specific in your situation. So you don't have to learn everything in the hour. You can take advantage of that. Now, we do charge $1,500 for a strategy session, but anyone that takes the class and schedules either a 15-minute phone call or a full-blown 45-minute strategy session from this class, we do waive that $1,500 fee as long as it's scheduled within 24 to 48 hours. We do either a phone call or a meeting, either a Zoom meeting or a GoTo meeting or a personal meeting in the office. We waive that charge. Okay, so take advantage of that if that can help you. Long-term care, expensive, right? So we want to make sure we plan for that. So Social Security planning. You know, when you deal with your financial advisor, make sure either they know about Social Security or they've got a Social Security expert on staff, because there's a lot of intricacies with Social Security. So your financial planner should be doing long-term care planning. They should be doing healthcare planning. They should be doing tax planning, Social Security planning, estate planning. All of these sorts of things should be done. It's not just about, did I make money in the stock market today? Social Security, I've got to get 40 credits to qualify. That's 10 years working. Once I do get to full retirement age, I get my full benefits. So write down your personal full retirement age in your income plan. So if you were born in 1960, your full retirement age is 67. If you were born in 1958, it's 66 and 8 months. And of course, if you were born in 1954, it's 66. That's your full retirement age. Now, if you haven't reached full retirement age and you're making income over $17,000, you probably don't want to take Social Security early, because there is a chargeback on your Social Security. Now, of course, if you get to full retirement age, turn Social Security on and still work, there's no chargeback because you are at full retirement age. Now, you can claim Social Security early and get less money, or you can wait and get 100%. And of course, every year you wait, you get 8% more. For example, if you waited all the way till 70, you would get 32% more from Social Security because you waited. So you get 8% per year every year you wait, plus cost of living allowance. Cost of living allowance has averaged about 1.5% over the last 10 years. So you're getting about 9.5% every year you wait. Not a bad guarantee to have an increase of income on your Social Security. There are some spousal benefits if you're married and one has a whole lot less of Social Security. There are some options to get 50% of the other person's Social Security. So if we can talk about that, or you can have a strategy session and talk about Social Security and what's the best plan for your Social Security. And sometimes we'll have the husband delay because men statistically die first. So we might have the husband delay to get a bigger check, and that check will then go on to the spouse when the husband passes away. So we're not only building a bigger check while we're alive, we're also building a bigger check to leave behind. So we might have the wife take her Social Security early, we might have the husband delay, and we might reverse that depending on the situation as well, and a myriad of different options there. If you're divorced, you can get your Social Security, or you can get 50% of the other person's Social Security, whichever is greater. So there are some benefits there to make sure you know about. Now, taxes. So now we're going to move into tax planning a little bit. And so tax planning is very important when you're going to retire. When you retire, there's a whole lot of questions about what you should be doing to pay as little tax as possible. And one of them is on Social Security. Social Security is never 100% taxable. The worst it's going to be is 85% taxable. For most people, it's 50% taxable, and some is 0% taxable. There are 4 ways to reduce your provisional income to where you still have good income, but your provisional income is lowered enough to not pay any tax on your Social Security. There are 4 ways to do that. We don't have time tonight to go through those, but if you'd like to talk about those more in the strategy session, that would be great. We'll do that. So whenever you book an appointment with a financial advisor, a good one, a fiduciary, make sure you go online and print off your Social Security numbers, print off your benefits so you know what they are. Bring that into your advisor and make sure they know that so they can put a Social Security plan together. If you do take advantage of one of our strategy sessions, we will print off, if you would like, a Social Security benefit and what it should look like for you and what your plan might look like. So now we go back to our sources of retirement income. When are we going to take our pension? How long are we going to delay Social Security? When are we going to take money out of 401ks and IRAs? So that's an income plan that's going to be very closely written up with your tax plan. And again, why would we do a rollover from a 401k to an IRA, even if we're still working at that job? We would leave the 401k open, but we'd roll over a bunch out to get so we have the right mixture between risk money and safe money. Okay, so we're going to move on to tax planning now. Let's go to what do we do with tax planning? Well, just a few things about taxes. Our highest tax bracket right now is about 35%. And so we want to make sure that if tax rates go up, we're not going to get hurt by tax rates going up. So most people are in the 22% bracket and the 12% bracket. Pretty good tax rates, actually. I moved here from Canada in 2000. When I moved from Canada, the tax rate on anyone making more than $50,000 was 52%. And sales tax was another 14%. And you know what, in the United States, the highest tax rate historically on anything over 200,000 was 94%. And that was when Ronald Reagan made B-rated movies. And then in 1970s, very easy to remember, the highest tax rate for the decade of the 70s was 70%. And when David Walker quit his job with the government as the comptroller, the CPA under Clinton and Bush, he said if tax rates don't double, for every year tax rates don't double, the debt goes up by $3 trillion. Well, when I was born in 1968, all of our tax rates that we have today were in fact double. And when I moved to the United States in 2000, the debt was $5 trillion. Just $5 trillion. Last year, the debt was $22 trillion, and I think because of COVID, they've added another $9 trillion in debt. Do you think tax rates are going to go up in the future? Well, let's get more crazy here. 62 cents of every dollar that the IRS receives pays for 3 things: Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. And guess what happened today? 10,000 Americans today turned 65 years old and did what? Went on Medicare and maybe turned on Social Security. 10,000 per day for the next 10 years turned 65 years old. What's going to happen to this 62 cents? Guess what? 6 cents of the dollar pays the interest on the debt. Do you think the 6 cents is going to go up? Definitely going to go up. So we've got major problems with the taxes. We need more income coming in and tax rates might go up. Guess what? Our current tax law expires in 2025. And if Congress doesn't renew it, it reverts back to the old tax law. And guess what happens to these tax rates? These tax rates go to 15, 24, 28, 38, 42. They go up. But guess what? Congress, if they don't renew it, guess what? They never do anything really. But if they decide to actually go to work, they might actually increase taxes even more. So if you're out on a picnic and you happen to be on a railroad track and you hear the freight train coming, it's coming, you might want to get off the railroad track. And we can hear the freight train coming called higher tax rates. We can see the writing on the wall. We kind of think they're going to go up. And if they go up, we don't want to be there. We want to get off the railroad tracks. So if you're retired or close to retired, you have 5 years to 2025 to get off the railroad tracks. Now, of course, we can't get off the railroad tracks altogether, but what a great book, The Power of Zero. The Power of Zero Taxes. It's a great book that talks about how to get off the railroad tracks. By the way, another great book is Stress-Free Retirement. And if you do come in for a strategy session, we do give you either one or both of those books. They're great books. So let's go back to Tax Planning 101. How do we plan our tax plan? Well, just like we put our money into 2 buckets, green and red, we put our money in different tax buckets. So in your tax plan, I want to write on your pad of paper, make 3 columns. The first column is your taxable money. Second column is your tax deferred money. And third column is your tax-free money. You want to put all of your money, all of your different accounts, how much in each account in each column. Because then if you've got too much in the wrong column, you just change it. Remember, financial planning doesn't have to be scary. It's not built on uncertainty. We know that the stock market's going to go up and down, so we know we've got to have indexes that are insured. We know the market goes up, so we're going to have some risk money to beat inflation. We know what the tax guide is right now. We know what Social Security. We can make these decisions based on certainty. And so taxable money, what is that? Well, it's any money that sends you a letter in February called a 1099. If you get a letter in February from a brokerage account or a checking account or savings account, you know that that money earns taxable interest. Interest, dividends, and capital gains. And guess what the best thing about that money is? Generally speaking, it's got good liquidity. And guess how much money you should always have liquid? And they call it an emergency fund. Generally 6 months of expenses. So if I have more than 6 months of expenses in this column, I'm voluntarily paying too much tax. You would be surprised. Today, I met with a client. They had $400,000 in this, actually $900,000 in this bucket. Way too much taxes. They don't need $900,000 for emergency funds. So guess what we did? We recommended that they move money to the tax deferred column or the tax free column. Easy to do. Tax deferred annuities, those indexes, they're tax deferred. You can put as much money in there as you want. But what other money is tax deferred? 401ks, IRAs. So guess what? There's a perfect amount of money that should be in tax deferred buckets. And so just to give you an example, and again, in a classroom setting, it's just an example, but we would recommend professional help on this. But if I have $700,000 between my wife and I in 401ks and IRAs, and we get to age retirement or age 72 when we have to take a required minimum distribution out, and that required minimum distribution is 4%. So let's say I retired at 65. I would take 4% withdrawal rate. That would be $28,000 of income. If I don't take the money out and I get to age 72, the government makes me take out an RMD, required minimum distribution of 4%. And I've got to take $28,000. Guess what? That could be considered the perfect amount. Because if I'm married, my standard deduction at age 65 is $28,000. So if I have income of 28 and a deduction of 28, I'm paying no tax. And if I've got no 1099s over here, I'm paying no tax, 0 and 0. So if I've got $1.4 million over here, I've got way too much. So I simply take that money, put it in the stock market, hope to lose half, and now I'm okay. Not really. I'm just going to reposition money into what? Roth IRA. Maybe my 401k at work allows me to buy a 401k Roth account. Roth accounts grow tax-free and pay out income tax-free and are inherited tax-free. No income tax on Roth IRAs. So I'm just going to start doing Roth conversions. And I'm going to stop adding money to my 401k and my IRA. I'm going to add money to my Roth. And those index universal life accounts can be bought on a non-MEC basis. Non-MECs have tax-free growth, tax-free income, tax-free death benefits. I can also do a MEC and have tax-deferred growth that turns into tax-free. So there's lots of options over here. So we've got too much over here. I might move it over here, or I might even move it all the way over here. If I've got too much over here, I might start doing Roth conversions. So that's how to reposition things to be in the right position for retirement for a low or no tax bracket in retirement. Let's take a couple minutes on Roth conversion. Just going to give you the idea real quickly. So if I've got an IRA, I can convert to a Roth IRA. All I have to do is pay the tax on the conversion. Once it's in the Roth, it's now tax-free forever. There's no rules on Roth conversions, meaning unlimited income, unlimited age, unlimited amount, as long as I pay the tax. So how much should I convert? Let's say you are 65 years old and retired, and your income is $60,000. You're in the 12% tax bracket. Your standard deduction is $28,000. So your actual income is only $32,000. You're still in the 12% bracket. So how much can I take out of my IRA, pay 12% tax, and now it's in the Roth? Well, the 12% bracket goes all the way up to $80,000. So that means I could take out how much? $48,000 each year. Pay 12% on it. Now that $48,000 is in a Roth IRA. Where do you want your money to grow? Do you want it to grow in the pre-tax area or the tax-free area? If this money doubles up to $100,000, it's all tax-free. If you leave it over here and it grows, it's all pre-tax. So please do as many Roth conversions as you can. This is called tax bracket topping. You're topping up to the top of your tax bracket. The next tax bracket is 22%. Then that goes up to about 170,000. So if your income is 100,000, tax bracket top up to 170 and pay the 22% tax. The next bracket is 24%. The next bracket is 32%. So if I was in the 22% bracket, I'd go all the way up to $350,000 on the 24% bracket, because I believe that that 22 and 24 is going to go way higher than it is now. So I want to pay the tax now at today's tax brackets. So I want to get off the railroad tracks by using a strategy called a Roth conversion. Now, one more idea on tax planning. We'll open it up to questions and go from there. But just recently I worked with somebody and they came into the office and here was their plan. They were going to turn Social Security on and get $40,000 of income between husband and wife. They were going to take $40,000 out of their IRA, their 401k. Their income is $80,000. However, that IRA withdrawal caused two taxes. They're not only in the 12% tax bracket, but it caused an extra tax on Social Security because it caused their provisional income to go up. So they actually were paying 22% tax on most of the IRAs they withdrew. So what we did is we changed it to take out $105,000 of IRAs, no Social Security for now, and we were in the 12% bracket. We converted a bunch to Roth, and we spent a bunch. And we did that for a number of years, and then later we turned Social Security on, which was $60,000 of Social Security. Now we were able to take out $18,000 from IRAs, completely tax-free, and cause no tax on Social Security. So our income is now $78,000 income tax-free, instead of $80,000 and a lot at 22% tax. And because we were able to convert to Roths over a 5-year period or even longer, any income we pulled back out from the Roth didn't show up on our income tax return, it wasn't taxable. So that's the power of zero tax. Go to a 0% tax bracket all the way through. Okay, so it does take some planning. Definitely, it's well worth time to come to a class like this and get some of the information that you need to decide if you need to do any kind of financial planning. I'm going to be here for a little bit longer. Again, if you want to call my number directly, I'll patch you through to my assistant that schedules our strategy meetings. You can also send me an email, darcy@bergenfinancialgroup.com. At the end of this class, you will receive a notification that you can do a kind of a response sheet, or you can sign up for something. So take advantage of that. If you do take advantage of that tonight, or send us an email tonight or tomorrow, we do waive that strategy session fee of $1,500. We do have offices around the valley. We have really good advisors. I'll just show you who they all are. We've got Brian Little, Ken Hayden, Don Deeren, Deborah, we got Phil, Ken, a really good team there. So take advantage of that. I'm going to just check to see if there's any questions. Hopefully you enjoyed the class tonight.